Standing at the precipice of one of the most monumental shifts in Western thought, Friedrich Nietzsche foresaw both the collapse of religious certainties and the existential vacuum that would follow. His keen insight into the unraveling of Western faith led him to confront the consequences head-on. The rise of nihilism, where life appeared devoid of meaning and the burden of human suffering seemed insurmountable. Nietzsche was not content to simply predict this crisis. He sought to challenge it and, in doing so, laid the groundwork for revolutionary ideas that would forever alter how we think about existence, morality, and meaning. At a time when religious faith no longer provided answers for many and nihilism loomed as the only alternative, Nietzsche aimed to carve a new path, one that neither relied on divine salvation nor surrendered to despair. In his life's work, Nietzsche rejected both traditional religious beliefs and the passive acceptance of nihilism. Instead, he sought a new vision of human values, grounded in personal strength, creativity, and the affirmation of life itself. His philosophy challenges us to confront suffering, not as something to be escaped or endured, but as a vital force that can propel us towards growth and self-overcoming. In this way, Nietzsche invites us to forge our own meaning in a world where the old certainties have crumbled. Friedrich Nietzsche was born in 1844 in what is now Eastern Germany. Raised in a religious household, his early life was marked by tragedy, the deaths of his father and younger brother. These events exposed Nietzsche to the harsh realities of suffering and death at a young age, planting the seeds for his later rejection of traditional religious beliefs. Rather than accept a divine purpose behind suffering, Nietzsche began to see it as an inevitable part of existence, something to be faced and transcended, not explained away by religious dogma. This early confrontation with life's cruelty would shape his belief that humans must create their own values and meaning in a universe that offers none. After a somber and isolated childhood, Nietzsche began studying theology at the University of Bonn. Though he excelled in Christian theology, his sharp intellect soon led him to question the very foundations of the faith. Exposed to various critiques of Christianity, Nietzsche couldn't reconcile his growing skepticism with his religious upbringing. He abandoned his faith, shedding what he saw as the illusion of innocence and blind devotion. Nietzsche then shifted his focus to philology, the study of language history, at the University of Leipzig. His brilliance in this field earned him a professorship at the University of Basel while still in his mid-20s, becoming the youngest professor ever appointed there, a record that stands today. However, academia soon began to feel stifling for Nietzsche, who found the constraints of the institution incompatible with his growing philosophical ambitions. Additionally, his health was deteriorating, worsened by a combination of inherited ailments and what is believed to have been syphilis, which he may have contracted at a brothel. This confluence of dissatisfaction and illness led Nietzsche to leave his academic position and pursue a life of independent philosophical inquiry. After leaving academia, Nietzsche led a largely isolated life, traveling across Europe in search of climates that would ease his poor health. He lived off a modest university pension, spending much of his time in the Swiss Alps, where he wrote the majority of his influential works. This period was marked by personal hardships, failed love, deteriorating friendships, strained family ties, and bouts of depression and nihilism. Yet, amidst these struggles, Nietzsche found solace in walking, thinking, and writing. It was during these years of isolation that Nietzsche produced his most groundbreaking works, including Human, All Too Human, The Gay Science, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Beyond Good and Evil, and On the Genealogy of Morals. In these writings, Nietzsche dismantled conventional notions of morality, challenging the dualities of good and evil, true and false, and right and wrong. His philosophy sought to unsettle the foundations of contemporary thought, urging humanity to move beyond inherited certainties and embrace the creation of new values. Nietzsche's work invited readers to question everything and, in doing so, to confront the terrifying freedom of forging their own path. God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? What was holiest and mightiest of all that the world has yet owned has bled to death under our knives. Is not the greatness of this deed too great for us? Must we ourselves not become gods simply to appear worthy of it? This is one of Nietzsche's most famous and profound statements. It is not a triumphant declaration of the death of faith, but rather a grave warning about the consequences of losing Christianity as the foundation of European morality. Nietzsche was deeply concerned about the collapse of this structure, not because he lamented the loss of religion, but because of the moral and existential vacuum it would leave behind. With the death of God, Nietzsche foresaw the unraveling of all values that were built upon Christian beliefs, moral codes, societal norms, and even rationality itself. He predicted that without a sufficient replacement, humanity would be left adrift, facing a crisis of meaning that could spiral into nihilism, where life would seem devoid of purpose or direction. Central to Nietzsche's philosophy is the realization that there is no universal, objective truth. There are no facts, only interpretations, he famously wrote. For Nietzsche, the death of God meant the death of any singular, authoritative narrative about the world. Instead, human beings are left to create their own values and meaning in a universe that offers none. This radical freedom, while liberating, also places a tremendous burden on humanity to rise to the challenge and redefine existence on their own terms. Nietzsche rejected the notion of any universal, capital T, truth, arguing that the search for such absolutes was not only futile but actively harmful. In his view, this misguided pursuit of objective truth detached modern humans from the subjective and creative experiences that give life meaning. By seeking meaning beyond life, whether through religion or abstract ideals, humanity drained the vitality from the present, earthly existence. For Nietzsche, the key to rediscovering meaning lay in embracing the arts and humanities. He believed that creative acts, whether in music, philosophy, literature, or theater, were essential pathways to deeper, personal truths. These forms of expression allowed individuals to connect with life in a way that was authentic and subjective, filling the void left by the collapse of traditional religious and moral systems. However, Nietzsche also recognized the fragility of these cultural outlets. He warned that art and philosophy could become commodified, academic, or stagnant, losing their raw, expressive power and turning into mere intellectual exercises. For Nietzsche, true meaning had to be continuously rediscovered and re-expressed through genuine, creative engagement with the world. Nietzsche sought to establish a philosophy that liberated the individual from reliance on collective experiences or cultural frameworks, emphasizing the importance of personal creative expression and subjective greatness. He placed the responsibility for creating meaning squarely in the hands of each individual. This philosophy is embodied in Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, often translated as Overman or Superman, which he first introduced in Thus Spoke Zarathustra. The Übermensch represents a defiant, confident individual who pursues personal desires with vigor and stands by their beliefs unapologetically. Unlike the conformists of society, the Übermensch embodies strategic selfishness and acts with a sense of grandeur and assertiveness. Nietzsche justified these traits by asserting that a new morality, one that challenges the traditional moral values rooted in Christianity, was necessary. He believed that conventional morality, which often glorified weakness and humility, failed to reflect the true nature of human experience. Instead, he argued that a philosophy recognizing the inherent human desires for power, vigor, and greatness was essential for a more authentic and fulfilling life. In this way, Nietzsche envisioned the Übermensch as a figure who would redefine morality and meaning in a world devoid of divine guidance. Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch is not without its critiques and misinterpretations. However, its significance lies in what it represents: an idealized version of oneself, embodying a powerful being who has transcended fears and deficiencies. This ideal serves as a goal for individuals to strive toward, even though it can never be fully attained. Central to Nietzsche's philosophy is the notion of the will to power, which he posited as the fundamental driving force of all living beings. "The world is will to power and nothing besides," he asserted. This insatiable desire to assert and enhance one's power manifests as a drive for personal growth and fulfillment. Importantly, Nietzsche's idea of power does not equate to financial strength or dominance over others. Instead, it refers to power over oneself, psychological and spiritual strength achieved through self-mastery and continuous development. For Nietzsche, aligning oneself with the will to power means embracing life in all its complexities and challenges. The pursuit of the Übermensch ideal fuels this ongoing process of self-growth, providing individuals with the motivation to push beyond their limits and realize their full potential. Through a continual cycle of self-dissatisfaction, self-improvement, and self-rediscovery, Nietzsche proposed a process he called self-overcoming. This dynamic process is fundamental to addressing the challenges of meaning and value in life. As individuals set goals for growth based on their idealized, life-affirming selves, they transform life's inherent suffering into something worthwhile, a personal redemption akin to alchemy for the spirit that affirms existence, even amidst pain. Nietzsche famously stated, "If we have our own why in life, we shall get along with almost any how." In stark contrast to his predecessor, Arthur Schopenhauer, who believed that suffering should be minimized and avoided, Nietzsche contended that suffering is an essential experience to be embraced. He viewed it as fuel for developing strength and psychological power. Life inevitably involves suffering, and the critical issue is not whether one will suffer, but how to derive meaning from that suffering. For Nietzsche, the true curse lies in the meaninglessness of suffering, rather than the suffering itself. During this period of intense philosophical exploration, Nietzsche's mental health began to decline. At 44, after witnessing a horse being whipped in the street, he experienced a profound mental breakdown. He rushed to the horse, embraced it, and cried out, "I understand you." This episode marked his last moments of apparent lucidity and stood in stark contrast to his philosophical ideals of strength and self-mastery, revealing a moment of pity, weakness, and compassion. Shortly after, Nietzsche succumbed to a complete mental collapse, entering a state of catatonia. One of the most powerful minds in modern history seemingly collapsed under the weight of its own depth, leaving questions about whether this breakdown was due to organic consequences of his health issues or the result of a mind that delved too deeply into itself, unable to find its way back. Nietzsche passed away in 1900 at the age of 55 from a stroke, having never regained his mental clarity after his breakdown. During his lifetime, he would likely have considered himself a failure. He struggled to find success or recognition, with his books largely unsold and his ideas overlooked. However, after his death, Nietzsche's work gained significant attention, leading to widespread respect and a global following. Although this fame sometimes resulted in misguided interpretations and applications of his philosophy, today, Nietzsche's ideas remain powerful and relevant, deeply ingrained in modern thought. His quotes and aphorisms resonate throughout culture, both literally and symbolically. In a fittingly ironic twist, Nietzsche argued that we must metaphorically die at various points in our lives to step aside and allow our true selves to emerge. This process often involves sacrificing aspects of our personal preservation, health, or sanity for the sake of a greater purpose. Nietzsche's life and death can be seen as a profound journey of self-overcoming and sacrifice, ultimately pointing toward a larger existential truth. His legacy challenges us to embrace the struggle for meaning and individuality, reminding us that the path to self-realization often requires confronting our deepest fears and limitations. Through this lens, Nietzsche's philosophy continues to inspire those seeking to understand their place in an ever-changing world. Nietzsche's ideas, including the notions of self-overcoming, sacrifice, and the pursuit of greatness, are not without their critiques. While his assessments of modern issues often resonate with contemporary existential struggles, his proposed resolutions raise important questions. Is it truly beneficial to embrace suffering and continually pursue desire, potentially leading to self-destruction in the name of growth toward an unattainable ideal? Critics might argue that for individuals who perceive life as negative or meaningless, the encouragement to set goals and strive for a life-affirming interpretation can feel like an insurmountable challenge. If one's view of life is inherently pessimistic, attempting to align oneself with Nietzschean ideals may lead back to a sense of futility, reinforcing the very despair they seek to escape. In such cases, how can one forge a life-affirming interpretation if they do not already possess a positive outlook? The struggle to create meaning can feel paradoxical. One might find themselves caught in a cycle of needing some truth or purpose beyond their current experience, which they believe is unattainable. This raises profound questions about the nature of meaning and the capacity for personal transformation. Ultimately, Nietzsche's philosophy invites us to confront these challenges head-on, but it does not provide easy answers. Instead, it emphasizes the importance of grappling with our perceptions of life, encouraging us to seek authenticity and meaning even in the face of suffering and uncertainty. The journey towards self-overcoming may be fraught with difficulty, yet it holds the potential for profound personal growth and the discovery of meaning within the chaos of existence. Furthermore, if one does not accept Nietzsche's premise that suffering is inherently good for the sake of progress, then much of his philosophy may seem like misdirection. As a thinker whose work does not adhere to a linear or systematic structure, Nietzsche's ideas can sometimes appear contradictory and are open to a multitude of interpretations. The previous discussions represent just one perspective among many. Importantly, Nietzsche's philosophy embraces this open-ended nature, serving not as a rigid guide to thinking in a specific way, but rather as an encouragement to think independently and critically. He invites us to explore our own paths, even if that means disagreeing with him. In doing so, Nietzsche allows space for each of us to forge our own direction in life. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.